Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli and welcome back to the third session. Today we are going to have as a guest someone you surely know. For many years he was associated to Moz, but first as a director of audience development and then as chief SEO strategist. From 2016, he is also the founder and owner of Zyppy SEO Consulting, and I think it was no more than a couple of years ago, or even less, Zyppy as sister site, which is Zyppy which is a very, very interesting resource for people who are searching for companies, agency, SEO consultant, very well curated by our guest. He also has an interesting past, not into the SEO world in his beginning, as many, many, many people in our industry. Our guest today is Cyrus Shepard. Hey, Cyrus, how are you doing?
Gianluca, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. It's extremely hot here in Valencia. And the hour
Oh,
that we are recording is about 8 p.m. for me. But I'm obliged to have the air conditioning on because it's something like 27 degrees Celsius.
oh
So
wow. It's
it's incredibly hot. Climate change.
yeah. I live on the Oregon coast where it's always cold and rainy, so it's very great today.
Well, we compensate each other.
Yeah. But I'm so happy to be on your show today. We haven't spoken in a while. You and I go back a long ways, back to the early days of Moz. We've been doing this, we've known each other almost 14, 15 years now. And
Yeah.
it's so I've had such good times with you in different places of the world. And it's so amazing to me that I never would have predicted that when we started that we would A, still be doing this, and B, and that SEO would still be really interesting and new things to learn. We'd be so involved, so much cutting edge stuff. So what a testament, and what a great time to connect with you and talk about SEO over the course of the next hour or so.
Yeah, yes, it's a real great pleasure for me to have this conversation with you. I really wanted to have it, also because it's really a long time we not chatting together. We were used before to at least seeing once per year at Moscon, but then things changed for both, so the occasion gets shortened of occasion. But going to SEO, how SEO is treating you lately?
Oh, SEO has been a rough ride the last couple of years, especially with clients. My e-commerce clients are doing fantastic. They're not even aware that anything has changed in Google because they're manufacturing products, they're selling it. Google seems to reward that. On the other hand, my more informational clients have definitely been feeling this sting, especially some clients that, rely on lead referral, things like that, and having to change some of their content model, a bigger focus on conversions, looking at other channels. So it's been a mixed bag. My own sites, I run a number of affiliate sites on the side. That has changed certainly over the last couple of years. But where one door closes, another door opens. There's lots of new opportunities. I think in the last couple of years, we've had more to keep up with than at any other time, in our SEO career. So it's been an interesting time.
Indeed, indeed. And well, at least with all the bad and the good things happening in these last 3 years, surely we cannot say that it's becoming a boring industry hours. I mean, the change is almost daily. And actually, I think it's an exciting time, stressful time for sure, uncertain time for many things, but it's a sort of, let's call it a renaissance of SEO, even if people are calling it with 3,000 different names. But now, because I still think it's, at the end of the day, it's still SEO. Whenever people search for something, that is search SEO.
Yeah.
And yes, you recently talked at Ahref Evolve. And at Ahref Evolve, you presented what I think it was an updated version of your study about the common characteristic website that have been hit by Google updates, especially core updates, always kind of big huge and many times not possible to be deciphered updates. With your studies of correlation, what are usually the most common things this website has? So to make it really synthetic, what was before telling what are the most common one? What was the most unexpected reason for being hit by an update that you found during your search?
Yeah, it's always surprising to me. And so for those not familiar, I was just down in San Diego, Arefs Evolve, great conference. Kind of strange for me because I have always been traditionally I have a long history with Moz. Arefs was a competitor to Moz for many years, but now that competition really is a little different. So it's weird for me to be so involved with Arefs, but still love Moz. Anyway, to answer your question, we've seen an evolution of content that Google wants to promote in SERPs and wants to devalue in SERPs. Back, and I think this really started happening way back in the day in Panda, the farmer updates, the content farms. We saw an evolution of it around 2017, 2018 with EAT sites. So a lot of, or the medic update, a lot of medical misinformation sites declining. And then the next biggest evolution was the helpful content update, I think, where we saw sites that were Google almost seemed to take your business model into account. So if you were monetizing clicks via affiliate links or ads, they really raised the bar about what type of content you needed. And a lot of those sites just disappeared from the web. More recently, the very last update we had, Google spam update, I think was a much more significant update than we're seeing reported, on social channels, where it seems like Google's definition of spam is not spam, what we think of as spam at all. Google's saying spam now is content that is not different than anybody else. Content that just says the same thing as everybody else is considered spam. And that's a strategy that SEOs had for years, just create content that looks like everything. So to answer your question though, the biggest surprise to me over the last several years is Google cracking down on common SEO techniques. Content that is optimized really well, the script is flipped. That a lot of that content was good internal links, good title tags, good content architecture. If it doesn't have, those brand and authority signals, or, something else is missing, that content is going to the bottom. And so a lot of the things that you and I have worked on over the last 15 years, a lot of the best practices no longer work the way they used to. So that's what my biggest surprise is, that Google seems to be targeting exactly the best practices that, we've been advocating for years.
Yes, but I think digging into this thing, I think that by itself, I don't think that Google penalized the fact that a website has a good internal linking or a good architecture, because that would be for me too weird. I think that Google, okay, this is a well optimized website, which is weird because if we look at the big volume of website, 80% of the websites are not well optimized for Google. So it's a flag, neither positive, neither negative. But let's put an eye to this website. Is the website just optimized from an SEO in order to run well? And does it have, let's say, what you were saying, brand signal that are justifying him to not rank just because it has been optimized? So this is maybe the combination, not really the fact that the internal linking is well done, that it's built, well optimized, etc., etc., etc. But if there are not supporting red signal, and we know from the trial to Google that there are huge amount of signals where Google is considering, if there are not these signals, then this website is somehow like a scale content.
Yeah. Well, a couple points. So when I've done a lot of data studies over the past few years, and a couple of things have stood out. And I'm not saying these are ranking factors or,
Mhm.
they're just correlated. And the predictors of whether a site has won or lost that we've found is brand signals are huge. The biggest predictor we found of over the last 3 years of sites that have won or lost Google updates is the percentage of branded anchor text within, from unique linking root domains. I don't think that, I don't think that's a ranking signal. It's just, but that's a correlation with brand strength. And the correlation is huge. If you had sites that had a lot of branded anchor text as a percentage of their overall linking root domains, those sites generally won. And sites with no brand presence, or people just aren't linking to them that way, those sites were generally losers, especially if they were monetizing clicks. So you got brand, you have the business model, and then the other factors that we found were those SEO signals that I was talking about. Sites that the more aggressive the SEO was, if they didn't have the brand, if they didn't have the business model, those sites tended to lose worse and harder than the sites that were less optimized. And that was surprising to me. I'm not saying it's ranking factors. I'm just saying that's where the data landed.
No, surely this is clear. Correlation is not causation, as we were used to say when we were together at malls and doing the yearly ranking factor
We had to say that every time.
Yeah. But yes, I think it's at the end of the day, it's completely logical that Google doing this kind of things. I mean, who wants to if anybody is mentioning now that also mentioned somehow for LLMs or Gemini and AI overview and AI mode, nobody's mentioning, even less linking to a website with a name of a website, of a brand, of a website. Maybe that website is not so relevant. Even if maybe, man, obviously there can be huge mistakes from Google, huge false positive and so on. But I think that Google now has the possibility to understand how much valuable and much for the people using Google is a brand, thanks to not only the same searches, not only from the same crawling the web, but also, for instance, now Google is opening a search to professional Instagram profiles, so you can understand if a profile in Instagram associated to a brand is equally important, because maybe it's less important as a website, but a huge brand visibility on Instagram, so that compare and so on. So I think it's quite normal, and that if it wasn't because maybe we were so used to obtain things just optimizing and optimizing somehow in a sort of mechanical way, that many people got angry or can be angry. But actually, it's the normal way of doing marketing. Marketing is usually pushing the brand, and then everything comes.
I agree with that so much. And by the way, your recent work that you've been producing some excellent work lately on ontologies and
Oh,
AI
thank you.
search. And I think that's so relevant to this conversation. And if we look at what Google's trying to reward over the past several years, you used to just be able to rank a website based on SEO. If you had the information, if you were hitting the keywords, if you had the links, you could rank almost anything. And then over the years, Google updates have preferenced brands. We want to rank businesses and websites that have real existence, that they are legitimate. And, part of the ways you do that is with brand signals, knowledge graphs, entity signaling, all that excellent work that you are one of the best in the business at. Those are the real world signals that Google is looking at. And, for a traditional SEO, if you don't have those brand signals, it just doesn't cut it anymore. You want legitimacy in the eyes of Google and SERPs and what you're doing on social media and all these other sites. That is so much more important than it was 5 years ago. And a lot of people aren't catching up to that anymore. So I think that's some really good points you made.
Yeah. And another thing that about this correlation study you have done, maybe less now, but especially in the past, you were used to somehow doing a storytelling, a live storytelling on social, of the many tests that you were doing. And two questions. How much did you learn from testing? Two, why do you think testing is so essential for SEO? Not only for SEO, probably, but for any marketing, technical marketing disciplines. And what was the most surprising test you did?
That's interesting. So yeah, I am a serial tester, addicted to testing. Back in the Moz days, it was just fun to work with some of the data scientists there and do these large scale tests. But there's two types of tests. There's on-site tests where you're testing something on your website. Maybe you're using something like Search Pilot to do some A/B tests, or you're just doing something. Those are so much fun for me, and I learned so much from doing those that it's just great. I love getting clients that allow me to experiment and try things, and I tell clients, you know, 40%, 50% of the things that we're going to try aren't going to work. We just have to have that experimental mindset. So keep that in mind when we're allocating resources. But this is a process. We're going to try a lot of things. We're going to have to revert some things. And that happens all the time. And my best clients are the ones that are willing to do that, willing to just have this experimental mindset. But I think we might be talking about something else here. And the types of experiments and studies that I really enjoy doing are looking at thousands of sites, looking at who's winning Google updates, who's losing Google updates, getting massive amounts of data from Ahrefs or another provider, and then just trying to tease out correlations, looking at 100 different factors and then trying to tease those correlations out. That's so informative, because when you have a client that has maybe seen a decline in traffic and you're trying to figure it out, you're probably not going to figure it out just looking at that client. You're going to want to find a lot of sites that look like that site and then start to tease out the correlations, and you can figure out so much from those data studies. So the most surprising thing that I've found, so I talked about this, I've been talking about this for a couple of years. One of the more interesting things I found from looking at the data over the last couple of years, and I think this played out in the last Google update as well, is the role of personal experience and perspectives. So all I do is I've got my screaming frog set up, and it looks for personal pronouns. People talking about I, we, us, people talking about how they did something, injecting themselves into the conversation. And every time I look at this and I crawl sites and I do the correlations, I find a bigger and bigger influence of people talking about themselves in reference to a particular thing. It always correlates extremely well. So I think that's a shift we're seeing in SEO that, and Google, Liz Reed of Google has talked about this, that they want to see perspectives and personal experience. And the more and more I try to measure it, the more and more it increases in relevance. So that's something surprising and actionable.
Well, yes, and that's also something that I also saw more than a year ago when I was working for a client who was penalized by one of the many updates. And I was seeing that Google started to price, it was a travel website, but very focused on, bed and breakfast in the interior of Spain. So sometimes in places where there are no hotels, something like this, what I saw that Google started to stop even showing, because we are things like Airbnbs or Booking also have houses for touristic reasons. But they stopped to run well too, not just this client of mine. And Google started to present two different types of sites. One, personal blogs of travel bloggers, which it was weird because it was after the helpful content update that added so many also classic travel blogs. But maybe they were too professional travel blogs that had been added. These were more naive ones with real photo of a person, real I stayed here, I ate there, and something like that. And the other really price website were real local website. As if for Google had the assumption if there is a local website, let's say the one of a city council, talking about in one crappy page about what you can see in the little town, even if it's horrible, even if it's probably still made with Dreamweaver, etc. But it's local. Moreover, it's an official website. Google was pricing it. So because with assumption that if it's local, it knows what it's writing about. So I think that the experience, apart of the fact that me, I, you, we, us, etc., is also about these things. Signals that can be detected as true experience, not fake experience. Because I also started to see, surely you also started to see a lot of websites faking an experience that they didn't tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your experience is spot on. And I had a client in the travel industry, probably very similar, very large travel blogger that experienced these declines. And it was always funny to see what was beating the client in SERPs. It was exactly as you described. It'd be like the ugliest page on the internet, not optimized at all. But what they did have, they had hyper local experience. And those pages would be dripping with this is what you want to do. You go here, blah, 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 blah. And that's not how we traditionally optimize. But that experience and the one thing you hit on that I think is so important that I think a lot of people are still sleeping on, you talked about the images of people actually doing the thing. And I think Google is training their algorithm on examples of exactly those types of images. So many people in the travel blogging space would rely and still rely on stock images. And I'm like, it blows my mind. Google can tell if you use stock images easily. And I think the Google leak, Sean Anderson, Hobo Web, just released all these ranking factors about, image
Yeah, yeah,
uniqueness
a
and
wonderful
quality.
study. I will
Yeah,
link it
quality.
in the description. It's a
I,
really wonderful study.
I think people need to treat their images as content, not as a throwaway that, just makes the page look pretty. Your images are actual content, and think about the content that you're communicating to Google. Is it unique? Is it high quality? Does it show experience? That's what people are looking for. I tell so many of my clients, we got to invest in a photographer. We need a better studio. We're going to bring some of this image production in house, and it's going to pay off in the long run. So, yeah, I think you hit on some great points there.
Yes, and it works wonderful. But I mean, because sometimes I think that us SEO, I include myself into this group, we are usually work with, okay, this is a website about a travel site, or this is an e-commerce. So we are like the horses when we are, I don't know how to tell it in English, when we're keeping on with what is the name of this thing that is not letting the horse sing sideways.
Blinders.
Yeah, we have this kind of blinder. So this is an e-commerce, just focus on e-commerce. This is a travel site, just, and then if you quit the blinder, you see that Google, for instance, was urging local businesses for the Google business page, put more image, more photo of your store. So this is somehow not a direct indicator, but a very strong indicator that this making you site feel true,
Yeah.
not just made up
Yeah.
or whatever incorrect brand idea you have is maybe going to pay you more than just trying to mimic National Geographic,
Yeah.
for
So here,
instance.
another example in another industry. I have a manufacturing client. They make tools out of steel. I won't tell you the actual client, but over the last 3 years, they invest in their products and everything like that. But their biggest growth has been from their tutorials, where they take pictures, how to actually use the tools, video tutorials, actually building things with the tools. That content has skyrocketed. And I think there's a couple of things going on there. One, they have the brand authority. They have lots of branded search. So they're exactly the type of business that Google wants to reward. But also that methodology, that personal experience, this is how you do something. These are real people doing it. Investing in that type of content as opposed to just, beefing up your product page, I think is a direction that a lot of companies would be well to start exploring as opposed to just this perfectly optimized content. Let's talk about how you do something because that's what Google's interested in.
Totally, totally. And that's why, especially I work a lot with B2B too. And I usually ask them to send me all the PDF they have, for instance, because in the PDF, there is all the content they miss on the website. But another big mistake that a lot of websites, not only B2B, do, for instance, SaaS, in the SaaS industry, quite common to have a subdomain, at least these two subdomain, help.domain.com and developer.domain.com,
Yeah.
which usually have the most interesting content on making the main website, if it was on the main website, more visible. And so with a flywheel effect, make also the other content of a website better and more visible.
That's really smart. So many companies have hidden resources. They have these hidden libraries, and the PDFs is an excellent example. Especially my manufacturing client is exactly the
Yeah.
same way. Hundreds of PDFs that aren't optimized, that are very much hidden, that people would love if they could find. So I think that's really smart. Also, I love it when you find all the support content, thousands and thousands of support content that isn't getting crawled, that people are looking for. It's hidden somewhere, and you discover it. Sometimes after you've been working for a month with a company, like, why didn't you tell me you have all this wonderful content? So that discovering all those things is often really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yes. So let's go talking about the AI experience in search. First of all, a more personal question. How you, as someone using search, doing search every day, but as a personal, private person, not as a professional, how much of your time searching is now kept by Gemini or ChatGPT or Perplexity, and how much is still on Google?
That's a really interesting question. I don't think I certainly use AI so much. I don't think my search behavior has decreased across any channel. I'm still in Google about the same amount that I was previously, but my search across other platforms has certainly increased. I usually have a chat GTP window open. I usually have a Gemini window open, and then my regular Google search when I want something quick and easy over here. What I don't know is how much my visits to external websites has decreased. I suspect that it has. I suspect that AI overviews, I let that do the searching for me because it's usually pretty good. One note that I think is interesting is I still type everything out as if I'm searching Google from 2016 and everything else like this. My wife, lovely woman, I watch her. With AI, she has adopted voice search so much more because she asks really long, complicated questions and just lets Google figure it out. And it does a fairly good job. And I think that's the future. And I wish we had more studies on how that search behavior is changing and getting much more long. But there's some interesting shifts going on in the industry, and I'm not sure where it's all going to head.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that what you're saying about using voice, maybe for once we can start saying that voice search is taking up. We were talking about voice is going to be the new SEO for voice search back in the day of Google Assistant, but never take it off because I mean, it was quite crappy, honestly. But now, yeah, yes. And especially people, I don't know if they're in the States, but here in Spain, in Italy, but in Europe, people are really used to, which is something that I hate personally, to send not anymore text messages, but vocal messages. Sometimes 5 minutes long messages, but you saying like there should be. Then I use Meta AI for making a summary because I can stand it. And but I think that also is picking up because people are really used to just do this. And obviously, and that's what for me LLMs, let's say search, generative search is perfect for because sometimes you have a very long question in your mind and it's so easy just to spit it out as it is, very long, very verbose, and an LLM will try to understand because it's a language model, so it will understand it. Sometimes we may have problems because of my accent, but it's fine. But then I think it's really interesting. So, which leads me to one other question about now a more professional use of AI. What is your opinion about all these sort of frenzy mushroom popping up tool about AI visibility tracking?
Yeah. So full disclosure, I worked with a company in Seattle called Gumshoe AI, which does
Oh yeah, I know
exactly that.
them. They are really good.
Yeah, excellent company. I'm no longer engaged with them, but I had a great experience. I think the jury is out on AI visibility tracking. I think right now most of the solutions are little overly people are unsure what to track and where to track it and what kind of questions you should be asking and things like that. I've heard a lot of, I haven't tried it out, but Diction Jones, I think you're familiar with, how do you say it? Wake?
Oh, yeah, waking.
Yeah. Lots of praise about that. I think as an industry, we have to figure out how to simplify AI visibility tracking. We're not quite there yet, but a lot of companies like Gumshoe and Ahrefs and some of the others, I can't even
Yeah,
think of their name.
also our host here
Yeah,
of a session advanced web ranking as um,
yeah.
it's based more on topics. It's somehow similar to Weka in certain things, in the sense that it's not tracking singular prompts like profound, for instance.
Hmm.
It's tracking topics in AI search. So yes,
Yeah.
similar to Weka.
And I think, with now that AI answer engines, including ChatGPT, are, we've seen how much heavily they rely on Google search results. I think there's a huge overlap between how well you're doing on Google and how well you're doing in AI answers. So I think right now, for most people, for most people, just tracking your Google visibility is probably going to get you 80% there. For companies with larger budgets who are really concerned about the future and AI tracking, I think it makes a lot of sense to set up some basic AI visibility, just understand where you're going and look at those reports and really understand. Whenever I share Gumshoe reports with clients, they are fascinated. And it really makes them think, where are they getting this information? What are the websites that it's pulling this from? And how can we be more visible on those sites? So as an SEO consultant, I think it's really valuable to get clients thinking about that thing and get them investing in the AI visibility practice, because that also helps with Google ranking and traditional search. So I think it's great. I think we need to simplify the process a little bit, because right now it's all over the place and no one's quite sure what to do.
Yes, yes. Also because then we also have to consider that actually there is even more than on Google. Now it's starting also on Google. I mean, now that Google is also allowing you to see the search, classic search, without personalization and with personalization, it's an indicator how much personalization matters. And this is even more on LLMs. That's why sometimes I'm wondering why people want to track visibility for specific prompts when that prompt probably is going to offer a different answer to each person using it. And that's why I consider that using the topic is the interesting thing. And because it's a broader, can give you some sort of, let's call it a sort of 6 visibility range uh, understanding. Or in the case you were citing Ganshu, I tested too, was a beta tester for them too. They were probably the first one using the concept of at least introducing buyer persona in order to diversify the type of answer received by the LLMs, which is great because that is how you should work in order to understand the biases or the differences between answer. Because one thing is going to be the answer for, I don't know, someone who has a strong knowledge about the topic and one who is totally ignorant about the topic, but asking the same thing about that topic.
I think another point is, what going past tracking is, the strategies that actually work. And there's so much overlap between traditional SEO and AI answers. If your brand is mentioned by Consumer Reports or the New York Times, that is great. And that's going to help your brand show up in both places. I think the big shift that is happening is, offsite SEO and brand building and visibility has always been important. But I think more and more people are waking up to just how important that is with these recommendation AI suggestions, that what other people say about you is much more important than what you say about yourself. And that's a big shift that's happening in the mind. It's probably a good thing. I think the problem that Google is going to have, that ChatGPT is going to have, is just combating the spam, the listicle spam, looking for those authentic voices such as Consumer Reports or New York Times or whatever you do. And it's probably a problem that they're going to be able to solve. But waking up to that brand building and getting your brand mentioned in more places, that's definitely a shift that we see happening.
Indeed, indeed. And I think that in this sense, and I think that not so many are really saying this, You are one of them. You just did it, even if you didn't cite it. Visibility on LLMs is the foundation of SEO for sure, because especially when, let's say, there is the RAG moment for the LLM, they are going to Google. So if you are ranking in the query funnel of Google, then you're fine. But the other thing is that very few people are talking is that LLM is essentially you must know online reputation management. But it's a different type of line reputation management, because once you were able to do it, creating content and pushing down on the second page, nobody goes on second page, the things you didn't want people to see. Now it's impossible to do that. So you have to create content on huge amount of website that are talking, hopefully rightfully, talking about your qualities and not about your defects. And this is also obliging you, for instance, if you have review management to do, many websites never really care about reviews or managing the reviews. So how many websites, from the more local ones to the biggest one, so from Google review to Trustpilot review, Yelp review, never answer it to a review. So this is something that sometimes, which is a basic, but in the past they never really didn't care. Now they should care,
Yeah.
because if a bad review is popping up, it's surely going to pop up in an LLM. And probably it's going to pop up also in the experimental Google webcam.
Yeah. I discussed this in my last conference talk, the idea of reputation, because as the listeners may know, as you may know, a couple of years ago, I got a job secretly working as a Google quality rater. And one of the first things you do as a quality rater, and this is no secret, it's in the quality rater guidelines, is you evaluate the site's reputation. It is one of the fundamental tasks of a quality rater. And so you're going and looking at reviews. It's one of the first things you do. And you're looking what other sites say about the site. And if you're a big brand like Amazon or, something like that, a few bad reviews doesn't make a difference. But if I don't know who you are, if I've never heard of you and you don't have a lot of, this huge brand presence, and you have bad Glassdoor reviews, which a lot of people think don't matter at all, bad Glassdoor reviews, bad Yelp reviews, that's going to make an influence, on how quality raters look at you and also how Google algorithmically looks at you. If they don't know a lot about you, those reviews matter hugely. So cleaning up your reputation, cleaning up what other sites say about you is a lot more important than I think people realize, those brand mentions. The other thing, on this topic, and I don't want this to go unsaid in this conversation. I think right now, I think a lot of people working in SEO, Lily Ray and other people in the industry have shown us how easy it is to kind of game these AI systems by appearing in a lot of top 10 lists. If you Google best SEO companies in the United States, it's not necessarily the best SEO companies in the United States. It's just people who have appeared on all these top 10 lists everywhere. And people are starting to realize this and they're starting to game the system. And what I predict will happen is Google will crank up the authority and trust signals of the people being mentioned. So they don't want just anybody. They're gonna like, is this an individual that's trusted and respected? Is this a company that we trust? And it'll still be gameable, but I think we're gonna see Google, and by extension, OpenAI and Perplexity and Gemini and all these things really amp up those trusted brand signals. So authenticity is going to be more important. But right now, it's still gameable.
Yeah, I think that Google will probably, I don't know if it's going to be really like this, but probably as it did with Penguin, but in the evolution of Penguin, when actually it wasn't really penalizing the people receiving the link, but was quitting the value of the link from the start. Maybe Google will start somehow doing something like this, quitting the value of a brand mention from the start. If a website is repeatedly creating top 10 list of something, because now this listicle thing is like the new guest blogging. I'm receiving at least 3 or 4 emails for appearing, put myself or my I love SEO website in one of these lists. And then I have to explain that no, thank you. But I think that could be an idea. And You know what? The sad news is that so many businesses are going to spend a lot of money on this, not knowing that these lists have a very short life. I mean, they can work if you are constantly appearing for a long time in a list like this. If you're just appearing in many, it can be also thousands of lists. But if you are appearing just for 2 weeks, boost, and then disappear, there is something called residency, which is we know is so important, especially for ChatGPT. We know that ChatGPT is pricing fresh content a lot. So if this content is going to be rotten very fast, also the brand value, the brand measure value is going to be rotten.
Yeah, I think you raised a great point about Penguin. Google is very good at ignoring stuff because, 80% of maybe 99%, I don't know, of the internet is spam, and Google doesn't know what to do with it. And, they don't know what signals, they do know what signals. So I see in my clients' analytics all the time, if I look in Ahrefs or Moz, I see huge spikes in backlink spam because I think people think that this is an effective strategy to demote your competition. And it just doesn't matter because Google just ignores it. And they're very good at ignoring really horrible, horrible spam. I'm almost insulted as an SEO when I see the laziness of these attacks. But to your end, I think Google will often learn to ignore a lot of the signals that we currently see working through signals of trust and authority and authenticity. So yeah, I think Google only pays attention to about 1% of the web, but we want to be in that 1% that matters.
Yeah. And I think, well, regarding just to make for the newest SEO listening to us, it's in many things. We help a lot to Google with all our TXT file, giving to Google a wonderful database of spammy website to train its spam algorithm, as we did with trying to start using schema, working for mobile optimization, and all these kind of things that we were so diligent to promote when Google was saying, yeah, it's a ranking factor. And just after, no, it's not really a ranking factor. It's
Yeah,
our classic
exactly.
story.
We're very good at Google has a stick and carrot approach, and we're very
Yeah.
good at doing both. SEOs generally give Google what they want. Well, we'll see.
And now let's considering both the multiplication of the surfaces where people search, which, and when I say these surfaces, I'm not just meaning Google, Bing, ChatGPT, or Perplexity. Also, I mean, it seems a geological era ago, but it was just 2 years ago when everybody were talking about TikTok SEOs. People are searching on TikTok, etc., and Instagram, for instance. And so search is done in every place. From it can be inside Amazon, it can be in TikTok and Instagram, in ChatGPT and so on. We know all these things that I usually call, as Google calls it, the messy middle. The fact that search is substantially going through so many surfaces, and how much is important also, for instance, in your work as an SEO to truly collaborate with other aspects in others area of digital marketing.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, especially when you're working with clients and you're working with marketing budgets that have finite resources. This is one of the huge challenges of AI, right? Because we get these AI visibility reports and we can see, these are the 50 sites being referenced. And then we look at fan out queries, and this is the content that you should be producing. And these are the social platforms that we can be working on. For most clients and most websites, it's simply too much. It is overload. We have trouble. A lot of clients have trouble just, producing a single piece of content a week. And now we're asking them to address fan out queries. We want them to be on Instagram. We want them to be on YouTube. I think for a lot of people, for a lot of clients, I think they should focus on just a couple of things, a couple of channels, and they should, instead of quantity, they should focus on quality. We are going to produce the best content that we can. We're going to do some video. We're going to distribute that video across our various channels. And maybe the answer is producing less, but producing better. And that's a philosophy I've always had. I always try to produce the absolute best content that I can instead of just, creating cookie cutter content. So it's a huge challenge. And I don't think you can be in all the places all the time. So focus on a couple, three channels that you can be really good at and hone it in and solve problems for people and be the focus of conversation. And then if you're really doing that well, people are searching for you instead of you just trying to appear where they are searching. And it works better that way. So that's a great question. And I wish I had an easy answer. Just be better. Be better.
Well, not all answer can be easy. Just a last question. You have surely worked with both enterprise and small to medium website and business company. So if you had to give having view the two sides, what medium and small business company should learn for enterprise in terms of digital marketing, and what the enterprise business company should learn from this medium to small business in terms of digital marketing to be better in digital marketing?
That's a great question. So I I like you, I love technical SEO. So I always have a little bit more fun working with enterprise because there's usually there's data or things, levers that you can move at scale. Like, hey, you never told me you had this old domain that had a million linking root domains pointing to it. So that's fun. But I think in this new area, and we've talked about this in this last hour, I think where enterprise can learn from small SEO websites is the idea of authenticity. Enterprise websites lack authentic voices. They lack personal experience. They're so corporate, they're so safe. And I think what most large websites need is more of those small voices talking, real humans communicating in blog posts and videos, and that authentic experience. On the other hand, for small businesses and medium-sized businesses, those authentic voices are their strength. Those are their advantage because they can tell those personal stories. They can pump out those YouTube videos of just them talking and solving real problems and being authentic. I don't think the small and medium-sized businesses, if they try to compete at an enterprise level, they're not always going to win, but they can take that personal experience and that's their foot in the door. And they can start to, rank for some really interesting things. Like we were talking about with the travel sites. This is a very specific problem that I am solving and I'm going to show you how to do it. That's the advantage that small and medium businesses have.
Yeah, and that's why maybe I started to see, especially in the enterprise, starting to also rethinking what is for many years now a quite, let's say, pushy marketing channel, which is the influencer marketing. And so passing from the classic influencer marketing to creating co-marketing, okay, a collaboration with creators, because the creators can bring this experience to enterprise. Okay, let's stop talking about SEO. Let's talk about you. And let's see. Before I usually want to, I usually talk about person I know because also sometimes, as I did with Rand, as I did with an Italian friend of mine, and I was saying, uh, you guys are wonderful, but your wife are even better. Let's talk about Dawn. I think you have a sort of about that your personal story between you and Dawn is somehow coming out of the movie because you met up and very young. So talk about the what is doing Dawn. I know that she was in like graphic art something, no?
Yeah. So yeah, my love of my life, Dawn, we started dating in high school, went to prom together. Took us many years to get married because I'm an idiot, but we figured it out eventually. She, Funny enough, I told her I was going to be on this show, and she has met you many times. She loves you to death, Gianluca. And she remembered one time when you were in Seattle
Mhm.
randomly for MozCon, and she was getting off work, and you passed each other in the street, and you both saw each other, but you were in such big crowds that you couldn't stop. And she's like, "That's Gianluca Fiorelli." Oh yeah, she loves you to death. Also, the thing about my wife that has benefited me personally, and my marketing career is she is a terrific graphic designer. And even my early days at Moz till now, when I have a piece of content I want to produce, I'll sketch out some ideas, I'll pass them to her. We make a great collaborative team, and she is my secret weapon for viral content. Whenever I include one of her graphics in a post, it goes viral. So I and she has taught me a lot. So that's wonderful. And she continues to design, she continues to work. She was unfortunately working for a travel blogger that got hit
Mm.
by Google's helpful content update, but she's moved on from that, and everything's good. So I will tell her you said hi.
Yeah, yeah, sure. And another question. I mean, some of the people listening to us maybe already know it, but you had a short time of your life that you work in the entertainment industry. What is your nicest memories of that period?
Oh, that was a crazy time. So the backstory of that is I never thought I was going to go into marketing. I actually went to film school, and I know you're a big film buff yourself, huge film buff. Did you go to school for film? I don't remember.
I study cinema,
Yeah.
not really like a UCLA, but
Yeah.
something similar.
So I graduated from USC Film School, the famous place where, you know, George Lucas and Ron Howard and so many people went. And I was trying to be a screenwriter. And so after college, I worked for a producer named Steve Tisch. He made Forrest Gump. He made The Postman. He made a bunch of movies. Risky Business with Tom Cruise. A lot of stories from that. And then for many years, I was just trying to break into screenwriting. The problem is, I was a really bad screenwriter. So I never really made it very far as a screenwriter. To support myself, I would do these acting gigs, background actors. One of my favorite memories was I got cast as Steve Martin's photo double in the movie Cheaper by the Dozen because they thought I acted and looked a little bit like Steve Martin. So any scene was a flashback where we saw Steve in college, that was me. And I got to do a scene with Bonnie Hunt at the Rose Bowl. That was a great day of filming. I was already balding at that point, so they had to give me a lot of fake hair. But that was with Steve Levy, who is a really big director. He's made billions of dollars in the box office. It was fun interacting with him and Bonnie Hunt. There's a part of me that secretly wishes I would have continued my acting career. And maybe someday as an old man, I'll go back to Hollywood and try that
Well,
again.
it's somehow the same for me. I always somehow dream, at least
Yeah.
if I cannot return to work in television as I was doing, buying TV rights of Battlestar Galactica or this kind of The Office, this kind of TV series or movies. At least one Hollywood website. Must have one Hollywood website as a client for once. I wouldn't know everything about how to make it better. And last question. What are you finding in living such a tiny city like the one you're living now that is made you decide to live there?
Oh yeah. So yeah, just a little background. So most of our career that we've known each other, I lived in Seattle, worked at Moz, almost neighbors with Rand Fishkin, which was great. And during the pandemic, like a lot of people, we moved from the large city to a tiny town on the coast, Astoria, Oregon. If you're a movie fan, as we both are, Astoria, Oregon is most famously home of the Goonies. That if you grew up in the '80s, you're probably familiar with that movie. And it's a small town, 10,000 people. We get a lot of tourists, but we love it. I've got a view of mountains and water outside my window. So many hikes. It's a little inconvenient trying to get to the airport, but other than that, I love this community. I love walking around and knowing all my neighbors. I do miss restaurants, good restaurants. There aren't that many around here, but we love it here, and I wouldn't go back. So great question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Cyrus. It was a pleasure and an honor to have you here at the
Oh,
third session.
great conversation about SEO. Thank you, Gianluca.
Let's see, maybe in the future too, let's have another one.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to you guys and girls. So remember, ring on the bell, subscribe to the channel, and you are not going to lose any other episode. Thank you very much, and bye bye.